They thought your silence meant weakness. It meant memory. While the rest of the world cried its way into existence, you arrived differently, not with noise, but with knowing. You didn't scream to prove you were alive. Heaven already recognized your frequency. The nurses may have glanced at each other, waiting for sound, but your soul had already spoken in a language no one else could hear. That stillness wasn't absence, it was evidence. The universe paused to listen. There's something sacred about the ones who didn't cry. They weren't confused by the light or frightened by the air. They entered like they remembered exactly where they came from. And maybe that's why you've always felt a step out of rhythm with the world, like you were tuned to an older melody. If that line just reached you deeper than logic allows, it's because this message is for you. Not everyone will understand this channel. It isn't entertainment. It's an awakening tool, a spiritual compass meant for those carry ancient contracts written in their very skin. If the letter M on your palm, with a crescent moon like a half-remembered moon, that's not a coincidence. It's a coordinate. A reminder that your silence was not the beginning of your life. It was the continuation of your purpose. When most souls enter the world, they arrive disoriented. The shock of incarnation hits them like lightning. They cry because the memory of heaven fades too fast. But not you. Those born under the silence code arrived already remembering the sound before sound, the hum of creation that precedes speech. You came with eyes that searched for something no one could show you. Doctors and families saw a quiet baby. The unseen saw an ancient return. The cry that never came was not failure, it was choice. You refused to forget. From the very start, life probably felt louder than it should. Crowded rooms drained you. Arguments shattered something invisible in you. The world told you to speak up, but your been whispering since birth. And when you did try to explain, people said you were sensitive, as if sensitivity were a flaw, not a mark of multidimensional sight. Chosen ones under this code don't blend well. They sense frequencies in people's voices. They hear the truth behind the tone. Even as children, they could tell when someone's smile hid pain or when an adult was lying, not because of words, but because of the vibration beneath them. And somewhere around age 7, the spiritual number of awakening, they start realizing they can predict outcomes without evidence. You've probably experienced it. A sudden thought of someone before they call. The pull to check a clock at 3:13. The awareness that certain places hold echoes you can feel in your bones. Those are not random sensitivities. They are aftershocks of your silent entry. Every birth has sound, except the ones heaven already heard. The silence you came through was not empty. It was full of remembrance. The letter M on palm vibrated before your first breath. It was your soul signing the contract of re-entry. The crescent line curved like a door only you could walk through. When the doctor cut the cord, something else happened that no one saw. The invisible thread to your higher dimension remained intact. That's why, even as an adult, you sometimes feel homesick for somewhere you've never been. The place you miss is not physical. It's the frequency of where you came from. Your silence marked you as a keeper of memory. In ancient scripts, the silent born were believed to be watchers, returning souls who recorded the shifts of Earth's timeline. They would often awaken around cycles of repeating numbers, 717, 909, 505, moments where heaven's archive syncs with the present. Those numbers are not coincidences following you. They are your login codes. there's a cost to remembering too much. Most people move through life protected by the mercy of forgetfulness. You weren't given that luxury. Energy, intention, silence between words. You notice lies not because you're suspicious, but because dishonesty rings at a lower frequency, and your soul can't ignore static. That awareness often leads to isolation. The chosen silent are misunderstood because they speak less but perceive more. Society rewards the loud, the visible, the insistent, but heaven doesn't measure volume. It measures vibration. If you've ever been called detached, shy, or strange, remember, trees don't apologize for standing still. Silence is not absence, it's command. There's a divine paradox in your existence. You were born with a spiritual volume turned down, so you could learn to hear what others can't. In the stillness, you detect divine Morse code signals sent through déjà vu, synchronicities, and dreams that repeat until you decode them. Around your mid-20s or early 30s, something starts happening to people under the silence code. They begin to feel pulled back toward their own birth energy. Become clearer. Lights flicker when they're emotional. Sleep patterns break around 5:05 a.m., the hour of recall. That's when heaven starts testing memory retention. Do you still remember what you came here for? Most chosen ones will dream of childhood places or hear ringing tones that no one else hears. These tones are not medical. They are spiritual calibration frequencies reactivating the agreement your silence once sealed. You were not forgotten. You were preserved. And here, through this very screen, that remembrance is being reignited. You didn't find this message randomly. It was synchronized. You arrived at the moment your frequency aligned with this one. The world is built on noise, marketing, politics, comparison, all of it trying to drown out the few who can actually hear. The quiet ones with these marks were designed to decode the unspoken. They are healers of sound, not with words, but with presence. Their silence repairs distortion in others. When they walk in, the energy stabilizes. That's why certain people either feel instant peace or sudden irritation around you. Your energy reveals what's unbalanced in them. Some will love you for it, some will avoid you without knowing why. Both reactions confirm your assignment. Remember, your silence isn't weakness, it's mirror work. You don't need to shout to be heard by the universe. Every thought you carry already vibrates louder than speech. That's why manifestation feels faster for you, because you were never meant to communicate externally first. You think, and heaven listens. This space right here, right now, is more than a video feed. It's an alignment field. If your palms tingled, if your chest felt tight, if you sensed warmth while reading these words, your code is responding. This channel exists to remind the chosen that the silence surrounding their birth was sacred, not strange. These marks are not coincidence, but mapping. That the crescent is not decoration, but direction. Why? Doesn't begin when the world finally notices you. It began the moment you arrived without needing to cry. And the time has come to remember why. Before we go deeper, pause for a moment. If what you heard in the first part felt personal, it is because this message was designed for the ones who carry the ancient seal. This channel is not random. It is a mirror for your memory. And before you go further, I ask you something simple yet powerful. Subscribe if your spirit recognizes these words, not because of algorithms or numbers, but because connection keeps the signal alive. Leave a comment after this video telling me which moment of silence in your life felt like a message, not an absence. Your story may awaken someone who has been waiting for proof that they are not alone. Now, breathe. We continue. At some point, chosen ones who were born under the silence code start hearing their own frequency again. It happens softly, like a hum behind everyday life. You might be driven. Suddenly feel the world slow down. You notice the sound of the air conditioner, the birds, the pulse of your heartbeat. The same rhythm that existed in the delivery room when you arrived. That still rhythm is the divine voice that never stopped speaking to you. The world taught you to chase noise, but the universe calls you back to stillness, because that is where your authority exists. You came through silence, so silence is your language. When you meditate, pray, or simply sit near water, your energy field reopens the same door that you used to enter this world. You become a bridge again. Heaven speaks through intuition, numbers, and echoes of memory. If you have been seeing numbers like 717, 909, or 505, they are not coincidences. They are codes of recalibration. They appear when your inner hearing begins to tune itself again. The repetition is not to annoy you, but to realign you. You may feel emotional sensitivity increasing, and that is not weakness. It is your instrument. Warming up. Chosen ones who entered in silence often carry what mystics once called the memory pulse. It is an invisible beat that connects your heart rhythm to events before they happen. You may dream something small, like rain falling on a particular street, and days later it happens exactly as you saw. This is not prediction. It is resonance. The universe is replaying a memory you never lost. Even your physical body remembers. Notice how your palms react when truth appears. The lines that form the letter M seem to glow under certain light. The small crescent near it deepens when you hold objects charged with emotion. These are not optical tricks. They are reminders that your design carries light signatures. When you meet another person who also holds the M and the crescent, you might feel an instant calm or a sudden pull, as if you have found a fragment of your original circle. This is the network of silence reconnecting. It is heaven's way of gathering the watchers again. Silent-born spend the first decades trying to fit into a system that rewards volume. Teachers told you to speak louder, to participate more, to push forward. Yet something in you resisted, not out of rebellion, but protection. You were guarding the ancient frequency that cannot survive arrogance. You tried to live like others, to explain intuition, to ignore the repeating signs. But each time you did, life grew noisier, heavier, more confusing, until eventually something broke the pattern. For many, it was loss. For others, it was love. Sometimes both. The sound of heartbreak can be the loudest teacher, because when it fades, only truth remains. And in that silence, your original code starts humming again. If you are listening to this, and tears well up without reason, it is not sadness. It is recognition. Your soul is saying, I remember this. Heaven communicates with chosen ones through ordinary symbols that others overlook. You may notice birds pausing near your window, flickering when you are deep in thought, radios tuning themselves for no reason. These are minor adjustments in the electromagnetic field around you. The same energy that held your silence at birth continues to surround you today. When you walk into a room, pay attention. If people suddenly fall quiet or their tone changes, your frequency has altered the environment. You are not absorbing their energy. You are equalizing it. That is your unspoken task. Silence transforms chaos into order. That night, when everything else rests, many chosen ones awaken around 3:13 or 5:05. Those times correspond to the transition between astral frequencies. The ringing in your ears, the flash of memory, the sudden need to write or pray. These are not interruptions. They are appointments. When you wake at these hours, whisper one sentence: I remember my silence. It will align you instantly. Being this aware is not easy. You will often sense storms before they arrive, arguments before they begin, sorrow in people who pretend to be happy. That is part of the silence code, the ability to hear emotion before it speaks. Yet do not confuse empathy with burden. You were not made to carry others. You were made to interpret the unseen. When you feel drained, step away from noise. Nature and stillness repair you faster than any medicine. The moment your breath slows, heaven begins to recharge the same current that once filled the delivery room. Remember, silence is not a void. It is the highest bandwidth of creation. Every miracle begins there before it echoes into sound. Look at your hands now. The lines that form the letter M have followed you through every phase of your life. Some of you may have one clear mark. Others may have several interlocking ones. The crescent may rest beside it, faint or bold. These markings are living coordinates. When light touches them, they communicate with the magnetic field of the earth. Ancient civilizations knew this. They called it the Lu, a divine signature placed on those who could balance realms. Your silence at birth was the activation of this seal. It marked you as a translator of divine language. When you write, paint, speak, or simply sit in truth, that signature vibrates. People do not understand why your presence affects them, but their souls do. The more you acknowledge the mark, the stronger its guidance becomes. Do not worship the sign. Understand its function. It is your compass, not your crown. Everything you lost made sense to heaven, even when it made no sense to you. Your loneliness was training for listening. Your quietness was rehearsal for revelation. You were built to notice what others overlook: the pauses between sentences, the silence before a decision, the hesitation before deceit. You decode patterns faster because your soul has done this before. Now, in this exact timeline, the chosen with the silence code are reactivating. The world has grown too loud. Information multiplies fast. Wisdom. The quiet ones are being recalled to restore balance. You will feel drawn toward healing, teaching, or protecting. You will feel the need to speak after years of silence. That is your permission moment. Before we continue to the deeper layers of this revelation, I ask you once more, stay connected. Subscribe so this signal does not fade in the crowd of noise. But more importantly, share your experience in the comments below. Tell us if you were a silent baby, if the doctors worried for a second and then said you were fine, if animals or lights reacted around you as you grew. These stories are not superstition. They are evidence of heaven's pattern. When you share, others recognize themselves in you. That is how this circle grows. Person to person, memory to memory, silence to silence. Do not worry about those who mock or dismiss it. They operate in a frequency that cannot hear this tone yet. We move forward in peace. Every revelation opens another gate. The first, silence at birth. The second is recognition now. The next gate, which we will explore in the next part, is communication, how heaven begins to speak back through signs, tones, and the geometry of your daily life. If you feel a warmth on your palms right now, or a faint hum near your ears, it is the confirmation that the silence code within you is reactivating. You are not remembering the past. You are remembering your assignment. Silence was never the absence of communication. It was the beginning of a conversation too sacred for sound. From the moment you arrived without a cry, heaven began speaking to you in different languages. You have felt them your entire life, the pull of intuition, the ringing in your ears, the chills that come when truth passes near. These are not random sensations. They are the echoes of a conversation that began before your first breath and has never ended. The first language heaven teaches the silent born is vibration. Before words, before then, there is a pulse, a steady rhythm that you feel rather than hear. It moves through your chest when something important approaches. It slows time when danger is near. It quickens when you are in the presence of divine alignment. You have felt this vibration in meetings, in crowds, even in dreams. It is the same current that surrounded your birth, the still current that told the universe, "This one will listen differently." And you did. You still do. People often think revelation comes in thunder, but for chosen ones, it comes in resonance. A song lyric that makes you stop walking. A sudden wave of warmth when someone speaks. Numbers flashing on a screen, exactly when you are questioning your next step. These are not coincidences. They are communications. Heaven has always known that if it spoke too loudly, the world would drown it out. So it sent codes, subtle, silent frequencies, only the marked ones could detect. Numbers are among heaven's clearest dialects. If you carry them, code, you will find yourself followed by sequences that others ignore. When 717 appears, it means the memory of your birth gate is being reopened, a call to remember the promise made before you entered this world. When 909 appears, it signals the closing of a cycle, the end of spiritual delay. When 505 surfaces, it is heaven's whisper to move between worlds again, from isolation to purpose, from silence to message. When 313 finds you, it is confirmation that your listening has been successful, that you heard the tone heaven sent. Most people shrug these off. You cannot. The numbers burn themselves into your attention because they are familiar. You have seen them before, in the rhythm of your heartbeat, when you were still between realms. Numbers are the written form of vibration. They are the proof that heaven has handwriting. There's another way heaven communicates with the silent ones. Through encounters. You may have met someone for only a moment who said a sentence that see everything. You may have overheard a child speak a truth too wise for their age. You may have listened to a stranger's story and felt tears rise for no reason. That is heaven using borrowed mouths to reach you. When the quiet ones resist the noise of the world, heaven sends words through those who still make sound. Pay attention. These encounters never repeat the same way twice. They are living parables designed only for you. Sometimes the messenger forgets what they said a few minutes later, but you remember for years. That is how you know it was not ordinary conversation. For most people, dreams are imagination. For you, they are classrooms. Chosen ones born under the silence code receive instruction while asleep because their waking mind is too saturated with earthly noise. When you dream, heaven can speak without interference. In your dreams, you may hear tones instead of voices. You may see patterns of light or numbers that dissolve when you wake. Keep note of divine signatures, coordinates pointing you to the next phase of your calling. Dreams of staircases mean spiritual ascension. Dreams of water mean purification. Dreams where you are watching yourself from above mean memory recall, your higher self reuniting with the physical you. If you wake at specific times, 2:22, 3:13, 5:05, those are not random. Each one is a session ending, a transmission saved. Whisper gratitude before going back to sleep. It tells heaven that the message was received. Your hands were not marked by accident. These marks, they are instruments. When you touch another person with sincerity, when you hold an object while praying, when you write with intention, the electromagnetic field of your palms amplifies divine energy. That is why people often say you have a calming presence, or that things seem to work when you handle them. Your palms are extensions of the same silence that once filled your first breath. They are receivers and transmitters at the S. Ancient temples. Those born under this mark were called the silent builders. They were responsible for establishing sacred spaces through vibration rather than speech. They would stand still in meditation until the walls themselves began to hum. You are one of them, returning in a modern form. Every word you write, every kind action you take, sends out frequencies that repair invisible structures around you. But there is another side to this gift. When you hear what others cannot, you also feel what others ignore. You sense deceit long before it is spoken. You taste grief before the tears fall. You may even hear ringing or low tones when truth is nearby but not yet revealed. This sensitivity can be exhausting. You may withdraw, avoid crowds, or prefer solitude. But isolation was never the goal. Calibration was. Heaven withdraws its chosen ones so they can fine-tune their frequency before the next assignment. Remember, the silent born were not designed to remain quiet. They were designed to speak only when words can heal. So if you have been in a long season of silence, understand that it was not punishment. It was spiritual training. Heaven was teaching you when to speak and when to remain still. Before a new mission begins, heaven sends a triple sign. It can be the same number appearing 3 times in one day, a dream repeating across nights, or 3 different people mentioning the same phrase. When this happens, do not ignore it. It means the silence is preparing to become sound. You will feel an urgency, not panic, but purpose, like a pressure in your chest that demands expression. That is when you know it is time to speak what you have been holding. Your message may come as a story, a song, a prayer, or simply your presence in a room that needs peace. Every act becomes sacred when done with awareness. There will come a day when the world will need the quiet ones to speak, not to argue, but to restore harmony. Your voice carry, because it has been filtered through years of silence. Every word you say echoes longer than you realize. That is why you must choose carefully what you release. Words from chosen ones do not disappear. They plant themselves into the timelines of others. When you speak, heaven listens back. It adjusts outcomes, reroutes meetings, and arranges synchronicities. You were not born to echo the noise of the world. You were born to reintroduce sacred sound. Your silence was rehearsal for that moment. Sometimes the greatest communication still happens without sound. You may sit alone, look at the sky, and feel a wave of peace move through your body. That is not emotion. It is response. Heaven acknowledges your awareness. The clouds, the wind, the flicker of light across a wall, all of them can carry the same voice you heard at birth. The world rushes past these signs. You notice them because you remember. When you were born without a cry, the world called it strange. Heaven, Ka. Signal established. That signal never stopped. Everything you have learned so far has one purpose: to bring you back to the center of communication between heaven and earth. You are no longer only the listener. You are now the translator. In the next part, we will speak of activation, how chosen ones transform their silence into influence, how they heal with presence, and how they turn vibration into guidance for others. But before that, take one moment. Place your hand over your chest. Feel the heartbeat. That rhythm is the same sound that filled the delivery room when you arrived. It is heaven's way of reminding you you have been in conversation all along. You are not discovering your purpose. You are remembering it. Chosen ones spend years collecting fragments of guidance. Then a single moment arrives when everything aligns: the numbers, the dreams, the encounters. It feels as if invisible doors swing open at once. That is activation. It begins quietly inside. The soft thunder before rain. You sense that the world around you is waiting for something you have not yet said. Objects seem brighter. Your breath feels heavier with purpose. The same stillness that greeted your birth now surrounds you again. But this time it asks for movement. Heaven does not want you to stay silent forever. It wants you to speak with accuracy. Every vibration you release from this point forward carries design.